Hey everyone, it's Mark with Create and Captivate, and this is the BetaFPV Air65 Race and Freestyle Edition. These are both 1S 65mm whoops, and you probably can't tell the difference between the two. And that's because they're the same in every way except props and motors. And yet that's enough to make a noticeable difference in how each of them fly and the flight times you get. But I have had these for a few months now, and I have other 65mm whoops, but these are my favorite. And there's a few reasons for that. So let's check them out. So both of these can be easily flown indoors. As you can see, I'm flying in a fairly small space, and even flying around what is fast for me, these both feel totally in control. And I'm not the most experienced pilot. I've only been flying these things for a few months. So a lot of credit has to go to how well these things fly. But despite how well these things fly, I still make mistakes and I crash. And I've crashed these things a lot. So thankfully, these things are also incredibly durable. So taking a closer look, they are both using the Air65 brushless whoop frame, which is ultralight and, as I mentioned, very durable. It's paired with the Air canopy, and I think it's a good design. Mine have held up fine. Something I wanted to point out on the canopy, if you've ever had to adjust your camera because it's not level, which can be really annoying, the Air canopy makes it really easy. If you just loosen this little screw, you can easily rotate the camera and level it, whereas other canopies I have, you somehow have to try and twist the whole canopy. So it's a nice feature to have if you ever need it. Now, both of mine have the Air brushless 4-in-1 flight controller, and I know there's supposed to be a 5-in-1 available, but I'm not so sure I would choose that over the 4-in-1. I don't mind the external ELRS receiver. I've had no issues with either of my receivers or flight controllers, and I've had 5-in-1s that haven't lasted as long as these. The flight controller has a built-in 5.8 GHz VTX that can output from 25 to 400 milliwatts. I find 25 milliwatts works fine for me indoors. You probably would want to turn it up if you're flying outdoors, but I try to keep it as low as I can to use less power. Note, on this board there is not a USB port, so you will need to use this adapter that comes with the Air65. You plug the 4-pin plug into the board, and then you have a USB-C port to connect to your computer. The camera is the lightweight CO3 camera, and I like this camera. The image is pretty sharp and it has decent exposure. It's always helpful if you can see obstacles better. The battery connector is the BT 2.0 with the 180-degree pigtail, which is nice when plugging into the battery. The connector already faces the battery plug, so you don't have to try and bend it around. And I've been using these BetaFPV Lava 300s and 260s, which are BT 2.0. And as far as weight, they both virtually weigh the same. On my scale, the Race weighs 17.26 grams, and the Freestyle also weighs 17.26 grams. My scale does vary from time to time. This time they just happen to weigh the same. And just for comparison, the Lava 300s weigh 8.08 grams, and the Lava 260s weigh 6.96 grams. And now we get into where these two differ, the props and motors. The Freestyle has the 0702 SE 23,000 kV motors and HQ 31mm tri-blade props. And the Race has the 0702 SE motors, but 27,000 kV and Gemfan 1219S tri-blade props. And the Race props have a wider chord and feel more rigid than the Freestyle, which will give you a little more bite and top speed, but also draw more power and shorten your flight times. So when it comes down to flying either the Race or the Freestyle, they are both a whole lot of fun. And I'm going to show flight footage from both, and we'll start off with the Freestyle. Now, out of the box, the tune on both is solid. They track well, corner smoothly, and I haven't had issues with prop wash. Now, I do find the Freestyle is a bit easier to fly. It's not as touchy on the throttle, and I just find I can maneuver through tighter spaces better than I can with the Race. And I think a big reason for that is the Freestyle tends to keep a more constant speed when I'm cruising around, so I can focus more on steering than trying to maintain my speed. The Freestyle is also good at doing freestyle, pulling off flips and rolls, it feels really in control. And even if you're like me and often over-rotate or under-rotate, it's pretty forgiving, so you can make some quick corrections and often still maintain control. And the nice thing with these is you can push yourself and try new things, knowing that if you crash, you're likely not going to break it. And that's the thing. They are obviously well built, but they are also so light that they don't carry enough inertia to really do any damage. And I've had my Freestyle for a few months now and flown it a lot, which means I've also crashed it a lot. And really all I've done is bent a couple props. And it does come with extra props, so that's nice. Now, when it comes down to flight times for the Freestyle, it does get longer flight times than the race. And the way I'm typically flying, similar to what you see in the flight footage, I was getting upwards of 4.5 minutes using the Lava 300s and somewhere around 3 minutes 45 seconds with the 260s. So pretty good flight times with both batteries. And now we'll switch over to some flight footage from the race. And I do find that the race is faster than the Freestyle. It may not be noticeable from the flight footage, but when I'm flying the race, I have to be more conscious of my speed, and I find I'm often having to ease back on the pitch stick to keep my speed in check. Whereas with the Freestyle, it's just easier to cruise around at a constant speed. One thing I do notice with the race is pulling out of tricks like flips and rolls is a bit easier. With that extra punch you get from the higher kV motors, you don't have to get on the throttle as much as you do with the Freestyle. Something else I wanted to point out, and you may notice it in the flight footage, that with the race, I sometimes get more breakup in the video signal than I do with the Freestyle. And I typically keep the VTX settings the same on each of them, so I'm not sure why that is. Now, I often fly on race band 1, but I tried switching to race band 8 because I think that's supposed to help with Wi-Fi interference, and it did seem to make a difference. At least on that channel, the video quality on the race and the Freestyle was more consistent. Now, when it comes down to flight times for the race, it does get shorter flight times than the Freestyle. And again, flying similar to how I am in the flight footage, I was getting around 3 minutes 50 seconds using the Lava 300s and only about 3 minutes with the Lava 260s. So I mostly stick to the 300s when flying the race, and with the Freestyle it doesn't really matter because I get good flight times with both. So overall, I think these are both great options in the 65mm Whoop class. They are durable and fly really well, and at $95 US, I think they're a great price for what you're getting. I think between the two, it just comes down to personal preference. You can do Freestyle with the race and probably race the Freestyle. But if you're looking for something that's a little tamer to fly and want to get longer flight times, then I would suggest the Freestyle. But if you want that extra bit of speed and punch and aren't so concerned about flight times, then the race would be a better option. Either way, I think you're getting a quality product at a quality price. So if you were considering the Air65 race or Freestyle, hopefully this video has provided you with some helpful information. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.